All right. Good afternoon. We're going to call the meeting to order, and welcome to the Salina City Commission meeting for February 10th, 2025. And I'll ask staff if the required Kansas Open Meeting Act notice has been properly provided.
Yes.
Roll call.
Mayor Linkowitz.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Hoppick.
Here.
Commissioner Ivy.
Here. Commissioner
Longbine.
Here.
All that are able, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We don't have any public hearings, so on to the consent agenda.
Item 4.1, consider approval of the minutes of the meeting of January 27th, 2025. And item 4.2, consider approval of resolution number 25-8279, appointing members to the Tree Advisory Board.
Any commissioners wish to pull anything off the consent agenda? Is there a member of the public which would like to comment on anything on the consent agenda? Okay.
Mayor Linkowitz, I move we approve the consent agenda items 4.1 and 4.2. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. On to administration.
Item 5.1, consider awarding the bid for construction of a new public dog park at John Parker Jr. Memorial Park to Ponton Construction, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $213,000.
Mr. Hammond.
Mayor Linkowitz, City Commissioners, Jeff Hammond, Parks and Recreation Director. I have before you today a consideration of awarding a bid for the construction of a new public dog park at John Parker Jr. Memorial Park. This is the named park adjacent to Salina Animal Services and where Carver Center is located. The proposed project with a bid amount of $213,000 is proposed to be awarded to Ponton Construction. This decision arrives from after a bidding process include several well-known contractors offering proposals. Ponton Construction is a reputable company in Salina and has worked on dozens of projects with the city. The Salina Animal Shelter on North 2nd Street was opened in the year 2000, and the dog park behind the shelter was opened shortly after that. The state of Kansas, under the Kansas Department of Agriculture, has statutes relating to the operation of animal shelters, humane societies, and animal rescues, and are subject to inspections based on those statutes. Also, given the popularity of Barkley Dog Park on Markley Road and the recommendations following a series of inspections by the Kansas Department of Agriculture of the Salina Animal Shelter, it became clear to staff that a dedicated public dog park would be a benefit. The mixed-use space behind the animal shelter, according to the Kansas Department of Agriculture, poses a health risk associated with disease transmission between public dogs and shelter dogs. And that was their feedback. And they urged us to avoid public interaction in close proximity to shelter dogs. The proposed dog park would add to our city park amenities with features that cater to both small and large dogs on the north end of Salina, including a 14,500 square foot 3-pod system. Sections will be allocated for small dogs and large dogs, and one pod be available for rotational turf maintenance, similar to how we do Barkley Park. Infrastructure assets such as irrigation hydrants, solar-powered lighting, 6-foot black vinyl-coated fence, dog watering bowls, shade structures, The shade structures would be 15 by 15 foot in 2 of the pods, and a bit smaller in one of the pods. And the sally ports will be 10 by 10 to allow a safe entrance for dogs so they don't escape. Site amenities like benches, trash cans, sidewalks will promote a safe and enjoyable environment. Staff will be providing those trash cans, benches, waste bag dispensers, and rule signage after opening, if approved. The financial aspect of this initiative was budgeted about 2 years ago. Our funding strategy was akin to the Barclay Parks funding strategy to use the animal donation fund for funding this project. There is a adequate fund balance in that animal special revenue fund for animal donations for this purpose. Additionally, I'd like to point out that in the bid documents, it was instructed all bidders to add a $10,000 contingency as part of the bid. So the $213,000 includes a $10,000 contingency as part of the bidder's bid for Ponton Construction. Staff recommends option number 1 today, to award the bid to Ponton Construction and authorize the city manager to execute the contract with Ponton Construction. Option 2, for amendments that can be made by the city commission. Option 3 would be to postpone this bid award, and option 4 would be to reject the bid and provide direction regarding the closure of the public dog park behind the animal shelter. I will stand for any questions that you might have. Also, Mike McCall with M Squared Architects is here as well. If there's any questions about designer specifications that I can't answer.
Any questions for Mr. Hammond?
Just one, was the fence height left at 6'2", or was it dropped to 2 feet? I noticed there was a paragraph in here about how lowering the fence would, if it would lower, it was only cut it by $2,000, so
Yeah.
was it left at 6 feet?
The former city manager asked me to look into that. Looking at the price-wise, it was really only going to be a couple grand savings to lower the fence height from 6 to 4 foot. Also, operationally, I did some just kind of informal surveying of people about their use of dog parks. In summary, was if we were running a small dog park only for small dogs, 30 pounds or less, it would make a lot of sense. But since we're doing large and small, it would make sense to have them all 6 foot, and especially since we rotate different spots for small dogs and large dogs to maintain the turf. So we'd stand by a recommendation of 6 foot fence.
Okay. You know, usually we don't have them add the 10,000 into their bid, so that's a little different on the contingency. So so their bid was 203, do they have to turn in an overage if they go over the 203 to get into that 10,000 contingency?
I think, I have not talked with our architect, Mike McCall, but I think he would probably do a transmittal of funds, requesting the funds be paid, and he would be helping us track that for us.
Okay. Because, I mean, by adding that 10, I just don't want it to automatically go to 213. I want to make
that.
sure that there is,
Right.
if that contingency is valid, so.
I think, I'm sure, my guess is Mike would help us with that, make sure that what the values they're asking for payment would address that contingency in it, and we would authorize payment that he would review.
Thank you.
While we're talking about the funding, using the shelter donation fund, I kind of have issues with that, and that I don't know that we've really got direction on what those funds are supposed to be used for. I believe with Barclay Park, it was a donor donated specifically for that.
The Animal Services Donation Fund was used to fund, but the funds went into that fund to pay for the Barclay Park. The records I've found of total donations for specific use of Barclay Park were less than $2,500. And, but the remaining funds were from that Animal Services Donation Fund for Barclay Park.
I was thinking someone donated the entire cost of the fencing up there.
The $48,000 for fencing, I don't have a record of anybody, in our animal donation fund, I don't have a record of anybody donating that much for the dog park specifically.
So I guess the issue I have, donors that donate to that fund, they really don't know what they're donating to. They just think they're being kind to animals.
Our instructions is from staff. We say that we're providing for the increased opportunity for the care and welfare of animals. We also state that we are using it for animal shelter improvements. Also, those are the two main things. And I think this dog park does fit into the spirit of caring and providing for the welfare of animals.
Yeah, well, like again, issue I have with $630,000 sitting in that fund not being utilized for anything. I think we need some direction on what we're going to do with that money. The other question I have, these drawings aren't very detailed, and it's kind of hard to make out. There's been concerns brought up about the design of the existing dog park, specifically the entrance and gathering place. I just want assurance we're not going to make that mistake again on this.
I do, when we were sitting with Mike McCall and designing this out for the smaller footprint of this dog park, we did try to take that into account in providing a separation, and I tried to highlight it on the entry plan sections 1 and 2, where there's a orange area that's a 10 by 10 sally port, and then there's a gate on the top of that drawing, and there's a gate on the bottom of the drawing. And in between that sally port and the blue shelter, shade structure, there's about 4 feet of space in between on the drawing. But there's actually quite a bit of concrete space underneath that, at least 15 by 15 feet, where that's because the shade structure is elevated, of course. And I believe we tried to account for enough space on this drawing to not create that congestion point or that pinch point, and to provide a gathering space underneath the shade structure and keeping dogs and humans away from that sally port, so there can be some unfettered access in and out. Now, keep in mind the context of this size of dog park. This is 14,500 square feet, whereas Barclay Park is more like 90,000 some square feet. It's 2 acres, and this is relatively small. So we couldn't take up the entire green space with this.
So the parking and the entrance points are going to be there in the Carver Center parking lot, right?
Yes.
Right off that.
Yes, sir.
And in the bid, there's not many details here on the bid. Is that going to include? Is that just the fencing, or is that going to include the groundwork, the irrigation, the seeding?
Yes. It was kind of a turnkey installation from a general contractor. To provide concrete, fencing, plumbing, the requirements of a plumbing, which would be a water meter and a backflow preventer, the purchase of the shade structure, the purchase of the fencing, the purchase of the solar lights. It was all one package as a base bid for all the items.
And seeding of the area too.
That's one thing it didn't. I think we were the only thing that we would see disturbed is where the fence would go, and staff would address that afterwards. Our landscaping staff from Parks and Rec staff.
Okay.
But there will be areas of disturb where the concrete pad would go, where the fences, and so we would ask the contractor to at least grade it somewhat so we can come in and seed that.
Okay.
Then will you seed it with Bermuda grass or?
That's a good question. I don't know. I would have to talk to our landscaping staff about the best mix or what they would recommend. Most likely we would start with a rye just for erosion control, and then we could add a fescue in there, and then if there's Bermuda grass already there, Bermuda grass will find a way to get into the area over time.
The question I had was actually pertaining to, I'm not seeing on the architectural rendering, some sort of bench or a place to sit. Is that?
Staff will be providing those after the fact.
So we still have time to give feedback, because I know that the public definitely had some opinions about that and its proximity to the open.
Yes, we most likely would put him under the shade structure. And if there's 15 by 15, that would give us plenty of room to put at least 2 per shade structure.
Okay, thank you.
And on the benches, there's been issues at Berkeley. I've brought it up to you before about the slatted benches that the dogs get their paws stuck.
Yeah, those benches we put there were our former benches that we had in the downtown, and we were trying to use this material, and didn't turn out the best that we could do. We're trying to reuse the benches that were in the former downtown, put some legs on them, put them in areas that people need seating. We would certainly choose a different bench and not use those benches.
I'm going to follow up on a comment that Commissioner Longbine made about the funds sitting here idle. I know we've discussed having an additional run out at Barkley Park. Would that additional run be funded through these dollars?
That would be what I would propose.
So if we did that, it really doesn't have to go through our budgeting process, does it, or does it? Or could that be done in 2025 since the funds are basically available?
Once we are able to get an estimate of costs, we would incorporate it into our 10-year plan of how we use that fund. And it's not part of the budget. It's a special revenue budget. So it's not necessarily subject to your approval, but it would be at your approval when it comes to the project itself, because it most likely would be over my authority or the city manager's
It
authority.
just seems to me like maybe since we have a bid here, it would be advantageous to maybe look into that and try to and move that forward a little sooner.
Keep in mind, we also have another project we're working on right now with Barkley Park. We have $150,000 assigned to making some of those improvements at Barkley Park on all 3 of those pods, to include a shade structure in concrete to expand that space at the entrance, so there's not that pinch point for the gathering. We are currently in the process of putting dimensions to it, square foot on it, and estimating those expenses for how we're going to use that $150,000 for the 3 entrances, and kind of removing that problem area, if you will, of Barkley Park. So that's also something on that list as well that we need to spend and use this fund for.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public like to comment on this item?
Rosemary Mai, Salina. I want to thank Mr. Hammond and Brett for working with us on Barkley Park. But our concern, we pretty much come to an agreement on some good things to come for the park, except we really, really need that 4th pad, because there's just too many big dogs in one pad. And if it could be worked in the budget this year, it would really be a benefit for that park. And but other than that, what Mr. Hammond and Brett and a few of us have worked on, I think what we agreed to will be sufficient for Barkley Park, except for that 4th pad. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Linda Reynolds, and I want to thank Jeff too. I do have one question. Barkley Park, we're looking at doing it internally to save money. How come you can't do it internally for the park up there, so it wouldn't be as so much more than Barkley Park? And I'm not finding fault with you, I'm just asking. you know, I like to save money for the city. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor, Commissioners. May I approach and hand you some handouts I have? You can distribute those to your commissioners also. Can I ask that my board members be refreshed, please? For whoever's, Mayor, may I have my full 3 minutes,
Yeah,
please?
give me a second, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Certainly. Let me know when you're ready.
We can go ahead and reset the clock, please.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. I've taken the liberty of putting these together. I wanted to email them to you, but I didn't get around to it in time. So have several questions. I appreciate some of the comments that have already been made, and they're part of some of these questions. Basically, I have 7 questions. They're somewhat related. The packet referred to a letter that KDA had recommended that we do this project, and it kind of sounded in the staff report like they wanted us to do it in the vicinity that it is now. Second of all, when we did Barclay Park back in 2016, a couple of things to note of importance. One is that that site was preferred because it offered ample space for expansion, and also that it was chosen by the public. We had a public engagement process, and it ended up being the most popular area, and so that's and the one that made the most sense. So that's why we did it. And so that question is, and it's been talked about here, was that location considered? The third is that is the project location consistent with the Parks and Rec master plan, and what are the annual operation and maintenance costs that are projected to go along with this? Now that we'll have 2 separate parks. The fourth question is similar to the community engagement, is that did this project seek input and or receive feedback from Salina Downtown, North Salina Community Development, Friends of the Animal Shelter, or whatever group has historically made recommendations for the use of the donated funds? Did it go before the Animal Control Advisory Board for a recommendation, and likewise with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board for a recommendation from them? Is there, as far as the fund balance and the donated funds, is there any concern that the plan to transition from a no-kill to a kill shelter will affect future donations and grant opportunities that will have a direct impact on the future fund balances? People in the industry say if you go to a kill shelter from a no-kill, a lot of your donations are going to dry up. Have all other uses of donated funds been investigated? So the question is this project considered a better use of funds over expanded capacity and other improvements that provide safety and improved outcomes for animals, staff, and volunteers? And the last one is that this is going to end up being about $250,000, and it's mostly a picnic shelter and fencing. Are we confident that all of our fencing projects and our picnic structures across the city and all our assets in that area at all of our parks, are we confident that they're in good working condition? And just a last philosophical question, are we fixing what we have before we build more? And so I appreciate your time. Thank you. Oh, and just one last thing. I don't expect you to answer all of those like right now, but whether you vote today or hold this over, could I get answers to those questions from staff or from hopefully from commissioners?
I don't think that's too much to ask. It's just, again, we ask that you be patient because that is a little bit of a laundry list, and honestly, it does kind of surpass the scope of the agenda item. So we'll get staff
Yeah,
on
we can
it.
certainly provide
All right.
answers.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. If there's no one else from the public, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, move to award the bid for the public dog park at John Parker Jr. Memorial Park to Pontoon Construction, incorporated in the amount of $213,000.
Mike.
It's not on. Sorry. Right. Move to approve motion awarding the bid for the public dog park at John Parker Jr. Memorial Park to Ponton Construction Incorporated in the amount of $213,000, which does include the $10,000 contingency, and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Ponton Construction upon fulfillment of all prerequisites under the bid documents.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bid for the public dog park at John Parker Jr. Memorial Park to Ponton Construction Incorporated in the amount of $213,000 and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Ponton Construction Incorporated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. And no development business. Other business, any commissioners have other business they wish to discuss?
Yes, I do. While we're talking about animal services and dog parks, the Animal Control Board is going to meet on Wednesday afternoon, and last month I asked for an update. I asked to bring some things forward, but I said, I think we've had update after update after update, and nothing seems to change. So they will be meeting on the 12th, and I'm assuming that the update, which I have in their packet here, is going to be what we're going to hear on February 24th in a study session. I would like to ask staff to research and bring some examples to rescind the BSL ordinance and create a dangerous dog ordinance, which would be much more comprehensive, not specific breeds, but any dogs, to eliminate some of the issues at the shelter. I believe in this report there's like 9 pit bulls with nowhere to go, no future. I believe it is cruel and unusual to keep a dog pinned up indefinitely like that. And so I guess that is my ask of staff, to research some of these various ordinances that Overland Park, Manhattan, Junction City have. They have rescinded their BSL and created a comprehensive dangerous dog ordinance. I don't know if I got support from the rest of any of the other commission, but I just feel like we have had update after update from the shelter and nothing changes.
Yeah, I think we did review or if we didn't do it ourselves, other cities' ordinances were brought to us as examples.
Yeah, we've been presented several over the past couple of years.
My guess is that our appetite to tackle this was such that we substituted the petition effort as a measure of the city's willingness to move on the issue. And when that did not pass, at least for the time being, just let it drop. Now, we can have a bad dog, I'm gonna call it a bad or dangerous dog ordinance. And in fact, we have one on the books. It probably needs a little more, hate to use the word bite, but it needs a little more enforcement in it. And we may be a city that has both ordinances on the books at the same time for a while. But I would certainly not want to repeal the BSL until the dangerous dog ordinance was in effect.
And I think last year with the petition drive, that was a miscommunication. And well, maybe that was their motive, to just eliminate the BSL ordinance. But I think we need to replace it with a more comprehensive, wide-reaching ordinance.
Replace it or add to it? That would be the question.
Right.
So I just don't think it's doing us any good, and it just continues to put pressure on the shelter. And you know, the November Animal Control Advisory meeting brought up a lot of points from veterinarians in the community, and I think they're going to bring those points up again on Wednesday, and I think we need to listen. That's why we have those boards.
I think definitely a conversation about euthanizing the dogs in the situation you mentioned, and I say that, you know, obviously with mixed feelings because, you know, anybody who knows me personally, they know I'm a dog person, but the prospect of those animals living the rest of their lives just confined in that, whatever it is, a 4x6 space is, I mean, that's an abysmal existence and as you mentioned, cruel. And I think that conversation does need to happen, and maybe if, I guess the question I have just personally would be the cities that have gone away with the breed-specific ban, if they've implemented a little bit more of the euthanizing the animals versus the no-kill model, and which honestly that kind of sometimes feels like a misnomer or a misrepresentation of it. But I think that conversation does need to be had.
So, Mayor and Commissioners, we do have a study session planned. Is it the next meeting? 24th. On the 24th, to have a discussion about where we're at with the animal shelter. At that point during that meeting, if there's a consensus among the City Commission that you want us to bring, we can talk about, maybe add some discussion about what a dangerous dog ordinance does to that study session. And if there's consensus at that meeting that you want to take that item up, we can certainly provide more information in the future. We already have kind of a plan to talk about kind of where we're at, and we can do that if that works for the City Commission.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other business from any other commissioner?
Yeah, we should have changed them lights, Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, I thought about that.
I thought about that as well last night.
Thought about that.
No, 'cause then we would have been blamed.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that moves us on to Citizens Forum.
Rosemary Mice, Salina, Kansas. I just want to let the commissioners and the public know that the Granny Brigade is holding their monthly meeting next week, Tuesday, on the 18th at 7 o'clock at the Carver Center. And our guest speaker will be Michael Austin, which is a Kansas economist. And his subject is on taxes and budget, and the public is welcome to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Albert Humphrey, Salina, Kansas. Yeah, let's get grounded real quick. Congratulations on everyone's new positions. With your guys' due diligence, I do have faith in you guys. Moving forward, the housing situation. So again, I'm known to say something crazy and following up with my elders. We'll figure that out. But with our housing right now, last year we kind of got together, a few of us. I invited some your constituents and whatnot, and some other boards to come kind of work with the public. But with the housing scenario right now, we're trying to have conversations about is a lottery system. And what I mean by that is we have so many community like halfway houses and whatnot that are popping up. Some friends that we were speaking about is where we do a mortgage where if you put down that money for the rent and extra towards a mortgage, you get a lottery ticket. And for that house that we will have, they will be able to own that house and they can do what they want. We'll have some legal things with it, but that's their ownership. So I do believe that we're going to try to put together some sort of association. So if anybody wants to use that as an opportunity, please reach out. But again, we believe that as we're paying rent, each one's paying rent, that we can open up this opportunity to expand on other houses and use, house equity. But I'm not a professional in the economics of that. But I do think that I could fill the rooms and proceed with having that. So if you guys have any constituents or anybody that would like to have that conversation, that will be in the near future. So I do believe there's good things happening, and you guys have a good rest of your week. Appreciate you. Also, Veterans Patient Week is, I think it's this week, so kudos to that. And it's something special to see a pinning from a vet. So if you guys get a chance, enjoy that as well. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners, I again have questions written down, but I will ask them first and give them to you later so as to save time. I have 5 questions. The first ones you have addressed, and it had to do with responding to questions that are being answered, so I appreciate your response to that. The second question was, and pardon me, beforehand, Commissioner Longmont, I appreciate that you have researched and looked at other board meetings, and I think fully understand what's going on at the animal shelters and with that board, so I appreciate your diligence on that. My question is for the other commissioners, were you made aware of the letter in August of 2022 about the vicious dog attack that happened at the animal shelter where a volunteer was mauled by a 120-pound animal that wasn't a pit bull? It's in the board packet for the meeting on Wednesday, among other things. Were you guys aware that a volunteer had been mauled?
Asking about something in 2022.
Well,
is,
this person sustained 80 stitches, got no help from the city, and it was in the letter of their dissolvement of the Friends of the Animal Board, among other things. I'll make an open records request for that. That's okay. So don't worry about that question. Has the city manager's office been contacted by any private animal shelter and service providers about the possibility of a public-private partnership? Now, this may be covered in your upcoming February 24th meeting. Again, I'd like maybe some response to this. Did anyone from that office, from Prairie Paws, contact the city of Salina about a public-private partnership or any questions?
Yes, we have been contacted.
Okay. And did we respond to them?
I did not. I don't know.
Okay. Maybe we can check on that. Hopefully we did. Anyway, I think anybody that has, like Commissioner Longbine, been following the Animal Control Board, one thing you'll notice is that they've got some very good, dedicated members on that board, and they are asking some very difficult questions, and the results kind of seem to keep coming back that we don't do very good follow-up at that animal shelter. I don't know what involvement senior staff has with it, but we have serious issues over there, and we need to address them. And one of the possibilities may be through a public-private partnership. Last thing real quick, last year Hutchison moved their public comment to the end of the meeting, much like we have. Back in November, they decided that things weren't working out. They moved it back to the beginning of the meeting. When we passed it, it was a 3-2 vote, and Commissioner Ivey didn't have the opportunity to weigh in on that. So since it was a 3-2 vote, and he may want to move it to the beginning of the meeting, can you please, Mayor, reschedule maybe a second look at that? And either in Hutchison, the mayor just said, okay, that's the way we're going to do it. He exercised his discretion. If you don't feel comfortable on doing that, and if you want the other commissioners to weigh in on it, could you please schedule a vote to move Citizens Forum to the beginning of the meetings once again? Thank you.
Okay. Looks like we have an executive session.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
All right. I move the city commission recess an executive session for 30 minutes to discuss with special legal counsel the subject of legal considerations relating to the Cozy Inn versus City of Salina case based upon the need for consultation with an attorney for the public body, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319. This meeting will resume at
5:11.
5:11.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. City Commission is to recess for executive session for 30 minutes to discuss special legal counsel, the subject of legal considerations relating to the Cozy Inn versus City of Salina, based on the need for consultation with an attorney for the public body, which will be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319B subsection 2. The meeting will resume at 5:11 p.m. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Yeah, in attendance of the meeting will be legal counsel Greg Bingston, our special legal counsel Todd Messenger and Amanda Jokerst, Sean Hennessy, Assistant City Manager, Lauren Driscoll, Development Services Director, and myself.
we're back with no action to follow, so
I make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
motion for adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.